Alright, hello everybody. This is going to be a little different. As you can probably tell from the title, this is going to be a little different from my usual content. Whereas normally I will sit and play a game and kind of react to the game, I just kind of had something that I wanted to get off my chest today, so I thought I'd kind of put it over some nice Everspace footage. So if you've seen the kind of games that I play and what I talk about, and if you've heard me talking to my friend Muppy Hindguard on his channel, you know that I'm kind of into the anime scene, and you'd think that I would probably be really knowledgeable about the whole the VTuber thing that seems to be taking YouTube by storm recently. And honestly, until like a month ago, I guess, I would say that I was not knowledgeable at all about the VTuber scene. I mean, like, I saw the Keys in the Eye project when she started up, and I thought it was kind of an interesting idea, an interesting technology, right? But I didn't really find it very interesting, right? There'd be occasional funny clips or this or that, the other, but I was never really super interested in that. I mean, honestly, I've never been a big fan of what I guess you would call idol culture, right? Like, I don't really follow any of the J-pop idol bands. I do listen to some J-pop here and there, but usually not from the idol bands. And like, I don't know, there's something about it that just seems like artificial, I guess. Like, they're people that are putting on characters in their own on their own selves to elicit a reaction from you. Whereas, like, cartoons and movies themselves are fiction, right? The characters are being portrayed by actors, but the characters themselves in their fictional worlds are not actors, unless they are. So, the whole idol culture thing never really, got to me, and by extension, the VTuber thing was never really anything I felt that strong of an interest in. I mean, if I'm watching LPs anyway, I'd rather watch someone like Chip Cheesem, who does really good gameplay and really interesting commentary, or like maybe the Game Grumps, where they're really skilled at improv comedy, and they're not trying to immediately respond to the people that they're streaming. They're not streaming, so they're not trying to respond immediately to comments and things like that. I mean, like, when I think about a lot of the big name YouTubers that I don't watch, it's because the games are kind of on the side, and what they're showing off is their personality and not the games themselves. So just that's kind of where I have been sitting on that issue, and so I never really thought that much about VTubers. I would see the occasional clip where something funny happens or something interesting happens, or maybe someone's playing kind of a game that I like or that I would have liked to play, but nothing too major. They're actors with games on the side, and they're always playing either the super popular games and like, oh yeah, this is super popular, so everyone will click on this, or they're playing a super hard game and them getting angry at the game or frustrated at the game is the show, or they're playing a really bad game and they're like, oh, this game is so bad, and that's the show. It is them and not the game. And like, whatever. Like, I would see the occasional video here and there, and like all the characters, I mean, like, the VTuber characters are basically, you take a list of quote-unquote cute things, and you put some of them together, and you create your 2D avatar, 2D or 3D avatar that way. I mean, it's almost an engineering project, and not really necessarily a sign of any particular thing that it's not a sign of anything real. It's an engineering project. And so, like, some of them will have some interesting things, and some of them, I kind of find interesting. They have a funny reaction to something, or like they're a big Toho fan. I feel a little bit of a kinship there, right? But I kind of managed to avoid this whole thing until about a month ago, where I stumbled onto a 6-hour video of Inugami Korone playing ActRaiser for Super Famicom / SNES, and like, I mean, a 6-hour stream is kind of impressive, honestly. Like, I don't do 6-hour streams. It requires a lot more concentration, a lot more, you have to set aside a lot of time, and it requires a lot more, like, just motivation, right? To play the same game for 6 hours straight. It's not super easy to do, I mean, even if you're being paid, right? Why wouldn't you just switch it up every 2 hours? And so, like, I saw this and I'm like, okay, ActRaiser's a pretty cool game. I mean, it's not like a super amazing sleeper hit, but it's kind of in that ballpark. And that's a game I probably will play on my own one of these days. It's a good game. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool, but it could just be a one-shot, right? Like, oh yeah, I did a 6-hour stream, I'll never ever do that again, right? But no, it turned out that it was either like the next day or like a week later, and she did another few-hour stream, and she finished ActRaiser in 2 sittings. And that's, at this point, I'm mildly intrigued. It's like, okay, this is someone who actually might be more about the games than about, you know, their personality overpowering the game. And so, like, you know, I kind of started to pay attention a little bit. And then I saw, it was a couple weeks later, I think, that she played obscure to me. I mean, maybe everybody else knows about this game, but it's a PC Engine CD game called Last Harmageddon. And it's basically a straight-up Final Fantasy RPG, only with monster characters instead of, you know, human characters. And it's got some voices because it's on a CD, of course. But other than that, I'd never heard of this game. But it seemed like kind of interesting and like something I might play if you handed it to me. And she played that for 10 hours straight. And I'm like, okay, now we've got an even longer stream, and she's playing an RPG that's not guaranteed to be some kind of like click magnet. Like, what's going on here? Now I'm a little more than mildly intrigued. I'm actually interested a little bit here. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I got to pay attention to this. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, I saw, a short video where she was talking about how she would. It must have been at the end of one of her other streams, where she was talking about how she would really like to learn about the game series Doom. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. She wants to learn about Doom because she's never played Doom before. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And, lo and behold, a few days later, I hop on to my computer and I see that she is streaming Doom 64 on the Switch. And, like, she said she was going to play through the whole thing. And in fact, she did. She played through the entirety of Doom 64. It took her a little over 8 hours. And, you know, it's just like, okay. And in addition to being impressive just as an endurance question, like, it was actually kind of awesome to watch someone, you know, do their first circle strafe. Like, there was something about, like, her seeing the first, Baron of Hell and doing her first circle strafe with a double-barreled shotgun. It's like, that's really cool. And so at that point, I was kind of interested, and I was like, you know, this is actually a pretty cool channel, But, you know, and being interested in a channel and being impressed by a channel are two different things, right? So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, you know, clearly she's got, you know, similar taste in games to me, and you know, she's definitely got a good, you know, personality thing going on. She doesn't overpower the game with her personality, but, you know, so the game is also kind of part of the story. But, you know, I mean, you know, that could still be, you know, that could still be a dime a dozen, or maybe a quarter a dozen, right? But then a couple weeks later, I came home from work, and I sat down, and I saw that she was playing Dragon's Lair for Famicom, or for NES. And I was just like, oh man, Dragon's Lair. I think I played that game once. And it's hard, and it basically requires you to just memorize it in order to get through it. Like, it's not set up in such a way that you can just have reaction time and kind of get through, because your character is very hard to control and moves very slowly, and everything else moves, you know, kind of faster than you. So you have to get the timing and the order of things ahead of time, or else you're just never going to finish that game. I mean, I think when I played it, I gave it 5 minutes and said, I don't want to ever do this ever again. I'm done. But I sat down, and she was playing Dragon's Lair for NES, and she had already been playing it for 10 hours when I started watching her stream. I'm like, okay, what? She's already been playing this game for 10 hours. What's going on here? So I kind of watched it off and on for the rest of the evening. You know, by the time I had to go to bed, she'd been playing for over 14 hours. And I was like, she had gotten like over 80 game overs, and was just kind of crunching through the game very gradually, and not getting too like angry or frustrated or screaming about, you know, dying on a hard part. Like, there was a little bit of that, but I think less than if I had been playing it, right? And so now I'm kind of sort of a little bit impressed. Like, wow, you're playing Dragon's Lair for the NES. You're actually crunching your way through the whole game. You're doing it in one sitting, and you're not like screaming in anger, because I certainly would be. So I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning, and she had finished the stream like 3 hours before I woke up, and she finished the game. She ended up using a code to get 30 lives instead of 5. That enabled her to finish the game the first time. I say that's foreshadowing. And it's like, shoot, if I was playing Dragon's Lair, which has no continues, if you get a game over, you start the whole game over again. I would have gladly clawed any advantage that I could out of that game. But later that day, she posted another video that was like, I felt bad for using the cheat code to get 30 lives in Dragon's Lair. Here's video of me playing through it without the cheat code. And lo and behold, there's a video of her playing through the game without the cheat code. Just straight up 5 lives, normal playthrough of Dragon's Lair for NES. And at this point, I am honestly, above impressed. This is admirable. This is someone who actually has a passion for games, and likes to play them, and likes to play them well, and likes to learn how to beat them. And I'm just really impressed, and I really feel admiration, I guess, for a VTuber. And I never thought I would. I always thought that they would be, the game is on the side, and what's important is my carefully engineered character portrait. And with Inugami Korone, that doesn't seem to be the case. So, yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to really say about that. I've really enjoyed her content. Last week she played Klonoa for PlayStation all the way through in one sitting. And, I think it was yesterday or possibly today, she played Gran Turismo 2 for a couple hours. And, it's just really, really good content, really admirable playstyle, just very determined, very tenacious, and yeah, I have to say that I am honestly impressed by Inugami Korone's stuff, and if you like my stuff, you might give her a shot. She's kind of cool to watch, actually. So, and she plays all kinds of weird games, and a lot of the games she plays kind of have similar motivations behind playing them as stuff I've played. So, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say. We'll just finish off this area in Everspace. So, the last thing I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to kill this drone carrier. And you can see these have these link drones around it that I'm picking off one at a time, kind of plinking at. I'm trying to keep out of attack range so that they don't shoot me down, because they do kind of take me down. And so I'm taking them out at long range with the pulse laser. I've got a 2 kilometer range on that, so I can kind of hit them, especially when they're not moving that fast. So, yeah, I start taking these guys out, thinking that if I can take them all out, then that thing will lose the shield around it, and I'll be able to get in there. What I'm not seeing is that it actually spawns new drones every so often, and right there it just spawned 4 all at once, and I'm like, huh. I try to shoot a little bit at it, but it just kind of hits back. And one of the things about this game is that you kind of have to know when to cut your losses, and so here I'm just like, nope, I'm not going to beat this thing. And so I head to the gate to the next zone. So yeah, thanks for listening. If you watch this whole thing all the way through, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you later. Bye.